Hello everybody, Shrouded Hand here. I'm going to start this video with a channel recommendation because I heard about this story from the Cool Dudes Walking Club channel. This isn't a collab or anything, I just genuinely really like this channel and I pretty much watch anything he uploads. Sometimes he investigates areas where strange things have happened, and that's how I heard of the Sandown clown incident. So I'll put a link in the description if you want to go check it out, and I hope he doesn't mind me using his video as inspiration. The Tale of the Sandown Clown. The incident happened in early May 1973 in Sandown on the Isle of Wight. Two children, a boy and a girl of 7 years of age, were near Lake Common in Sandown. At around 4 o'clock they heard in the distance an eerie wailing noise which they described as sounding similar to an ambulance siren. They walked in the direction of the sound, which took them over a golf course and through a hedge until they ended up in a swampy field next to Sandown Airport. As they entered the field, the wailing noise stopped, so they decided to explore the area. Nearby was a narrow stream with a wooden bridge crossing it. As they walked across the bridge, a three-fingered hand wearing a blue glove rose up from underneath. The hand was attached to a strange figure who emerged from underneath the bridge holding a book. He dropped the book into the water and spent some time splashing about trying to retrieve it. The description of this person or creature is highly unusual, and I'll quote it exactly as it was first reported. He was nearly 7 feet tall and had no neck, for his head appeared to be wedged straight onto his shoulders. He wore a yellow pointed hat which interlocked with a red collar of a green tunic. A round black knob was affixed to the top of his hat and wooden antennae were attached to each side. The face had triangular markings for eyes, a brown square of a nose and motionless yellow lips. Other round markings were on his paper white cheeks and a fringe of red hair fell onto his forehead. Wooden slats protruded from his sleeves and from below his white trousers. I'll also add to this description to say that his clothes were all torn up and he had bare feet. Each foot had 3 toes to match his 3-fingered hands. After retrieving his book from the stream, the figure made a weird hopping motion with his knees raised up high, and he went into a metal windowless hut. The creature then came out of the hut holding what looked like a black microphone with a white cable. The wailing siren type sound started up again, but this time it was so loud that the children got scared and they ran away. The siren then stopped and a friendly voice called out, "Hello, are you still there?" The voice was coming from the creature talking into the microphone, but although they were quite far away from him at that point, it sounded like he was standing right next to them. I don't know about you, but I probably would have kept running, but then again, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Stranger danger made me naturally wary of creepy characters hanging around in the bushes, and that TV adaptation of Stephen King's It put the fear of clowns into me from a young age. And now that I think about it, that Billy Goat's Gruff story probably taught me not to trust anything that emerges from underneath a bridge either. I guess these kids were more trusting. It was the 70s, an absolute golden age for child snatchers. They thought the voice sounded trustworthy. They walked back to the hut with the deformed clown thing standing outside it. The clown took out a notebook and wrote in large letters a series of words that were not written in any intelligible order. The creature pointed to each word in the order that they should be read, and the girl read them out loud. She read out, "Hello, and I am all colours Sam." They came closer and they found that the creature could talk without its microphone, but its speech was muffled, described as being rather like that of a person who does not open their mouth properly. Also, his strange yellow lips didn't move when he spoke. He asked the children questions about themselves, and they asked him questions in return. They asked him about his ripped clothes. He said he only had one set of clothes to wear. They asked him if he was a man. He said no. They asked if he was a ghost. He said, well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way. They asked, if you aren't a man and you aren't a ghost, what are you? To this he only replied, you know. He told the children that he kept himself hidden because he was scared people might attack him. He also said that there were others like him, and he drew a sketch of one of them in his book. Another weird detail is, while all this was going on, there were two workmen fixing a post nearby, and they didn't react at all. It was as if they couldn't see the children or the clown creature. The Sandown clown invited the children into his hut. They entered by crawling through a flap in the side. Inside, the hut was divided into two levels. The walls of the ground floor area were decorated with a blue and green wallpaper covered in a pattern of dials. There was some rudimentary wooden furniture and some kind of electric heater. The upper floor was more cramped and had a metal floor. Once they were inside, the creature removed his hat to reveal round white ears and patchy brown hair. He told the children that he drank water from the stream once he cleaned it, and that he ate berries which he collected in the afternoon. He also indicated that he had a camp on mainland Britain that he would visit sometimes. He then did something extremely strange. He took a berry and put it into his ear. He then thrust his head forward quickly, causing the berry to vanish from his ear and reappear in one of his weird triangular eyes. He then thrust his head forward one more time and the berry appeared in his mouth. The children and the clown chatted for about half an hour before the kids said their goodbyes and exited the hut. They ran across the golf course back to Lake Common. They told the first adult they met that they'd just seen a ghost. Of course they were laughed at and sent on their way. Perhaps this is why the girl waited 3 weeks before she told her father about her experience. Naturally, at first the father also laughed. He assumed the tale was the result of an overactive imagination, but his daughter was so insistent that it had happened and provided so much detail that he got the feeling that there might be some truth to her story. He sought out the boy who had been with his daughter at the time of the encounter and asked him about the events. He says the boy wasn't as easy to talk to as his daughter, but he did confirm that they had indeed encountered that strange figure, and the details that his daughter had provided were true. Eventually the man wrote down the story and sent it to the Bufora Journal, the British UFO Research Association journal. It appeared in the January-February issue of 1978. Now you might be wondering why he decided to contact a UFO association in the first place. After all, the children always maintained that the person that they'd met was either a ghost or a man dressed up. Well, in the years leading up to this encounter, the girl's father had seen a number of strange things himself. In October of 1970, 3 years before the Sandown clown incident, he was driving his car at around 7 p.m. He was going through the village of Brading and then he turned right, heading towards St. Helens. It's hard to tell exactly where he was looking at Google Maps because I don't know the area and I don't know how the roads have changed since 1970, but I think it would put him either on Key Lane or Carpenter's Road. He looked to his right in the direction of the River Yar and he saw an enormous craft. He describes it as a ring of about 7 bright red lights, each of them a clearly defined sphere like a cherry. These lights were interspersed with turquoise and white lights. He says that the craft was somewhere between the road and Bembridge Downs and was hovering along the banks of the River Yar, so that would put it somewhere around here, only a couple of miles from where the children had had their experience. He stopped his car and watched the craft for a while. Then, as he drove on, it seemed to move with him, staying parallel to his car. As he got close to St. Helens, the craft flew lower to the ground and seemed to shrink. Now there was only 4 lights. Again he stopped his car and he spent around 10 minutes signalling to the craft with his torch. The object appeared to weave back and forth in response to his signalling. He then drove to his friend's house and his friend was also able to see the lights. Later on he drove to Ryde and lost sight of the craft, but ever since that night, on a number of occasions, he would see single red lights in the sky which would hover nearby or follow his car as if they were observing him. In March of 1972 he had another strange experience. He was at Compton Bay, which is over the other side of the Isle of Wight. It was between 9 and 10 PM. There was a sudden and unexpected tidal surge that left him trapped on the cliffs. The surge seems to have been caused by something large under the water. The article describes it as a droning underwater craft which suggests it emitted some sort of noise. The only thing the man could see though were two yellow lights under the surface of the sea which peered up at him like the eyes of some horrible sea monster. It wasn't until the lights disappeared that the tide went out and he was able to escape from the cliffs. He didn't tell his daughter about any of these experiences, so it's interesting that she had her strange encounter with the clown creature not long after this. I'm not sure whether this means they are related in any way, but the proximity of the red lights is at least a strange coincidence. Something else that interests me about this Sandown clown story is that it follows the pattern of a classic alien abduction. An encounter with a strange humanoid creature who possesses some sort of futuristic technology. He then takes some humans aboard a metallic craft, or in this case, a metal hut. There's an interesting book called Perspectives by John Spencer that talks about this phenomena. He argues that there are so many credible witnesses who report these kind of abductions, and they all follow a similar pattern, but their descriptions of what the creatures and their craft look like seem to conform to whatever the witness expects to see. So if you think aliens look like little grey men, or if you think they look like a 50s sci-fi robot, then that's what you're going to get abducted by. The book goes on to argue that there could be some kind of phenomena that we don't yet understand, something that the human mind can't quite comprehend fully, so when someone encounters it, their brain sort of fills in the gaps with whatever cultural references they have to try and make sense of it. The phenomena doesn't even need to be extraterrestrial in nature. Who knows, maybe there's some sort of swamp gas or magnetic field that produces a very specific hallucination when someone is affected by it. It's like how multiple people report seeing the same things when they take DMT, meeting some sort of godlike entity or the fabled machine elves, but the descriptions of what these entities look like will vary wildly between each experiencer. Of course, the most down-to-earth explanation for the Sandown clown is that the children fabricated the story. I can imagine a situation where the girl told her father some fanciful story about meeting a strange character, and the father, thinking that it might be linked to the strange lights that he had seen, asks her to go into specifics, and the daughter just keeps adding increasingly elaborate details, enjoying the attention that it brings her. The only thing I would say about this is the child referred to the clown as a ghost, and yet the description doesn't sound anything like a ghost. If the girl was making up the story, she'd probably have heard plenty of classic ghost stories to draw inspiration from, and yet she invents a weird clown thing with wooden antenna. As I say, she described something much closer to an alien abduction, but she never referred to it as an alien and had no knowledge of her father's UFO sightings. The other possibility, of course, is that the Sandown clown was just some guy dressed up and hiding in a marshy field for some unknown reason. I don't know why, but I find this explanation the most sinister. I mean, what would a guy be doing out there hiding under a bridge dressed as a clown? Why does he have a microphone to speak through, and why would he be luring children to his hut with a weird siren noise? The tale suddenly takes on a sleazy aspect. The description of the clown's face now makes me think of a latex fetish mask. Honestly, I'd rather think of it as an alien ghost clown than a real human being. I do wonder what happened to the children in this story. I think they'd be about 56 by now, so there's a good chance they are still alive and they might be able to shed more light on the story. Unfortunately, the Bufora article keeps the children and the father anonymous, so I don't think it would be easy to track them down, and if someone came forward to say that they were the children in the article, it'd be hard for them to prove it. And so the story will probably remain a mystery. A weird story that doesn't quite make sense. It's probably got a down-to-earth explanation, but there's enough strange details to keep it turning over in my mind. So thanks for watching, and thanks as usual to the patrons who are keeping the channel going. I know I usually cover more terrestrial topics, but hopefully you don't mind me doing videos about the weirder stuff like this now and then. So go and check out the Cool Dudes Walking Club channel. As I say, this isn't a collab or anything, I just really like the channel and I think more people should see it. So I'll put a link on screen now, or there'll be one in the description. I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.